Hey all, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new to Roundup Save, my name is Neil. Entering a new job or switching careers from another field or even graduating from school into the workforce can make you totally feel like you have imposter syndrome. And trust me, I've been there. While it's obviously very important to always have a baseline level of education in terms of what you're getting into, I've realized over time that it's totally fine to not know everything, and making mistakes is perfectly normal. This has really helped me a lot in terms of developing my own confidence when it comes to work. So in today's video, I want to share some tips in terms of how to build confidence in your career. And this video will really be a reflection of my personal experiences, but I think it's broadly applicable to a lot of people too. So the first tip I have is to ask a lot of questions. In my opinion, I don't really think there is a such thing as a dumb question. And in fact, if someone's explaining something to you and you're not fully understanding that topic, I actually would argue that not asking a question earlier on, and when ultimately the conversations kind of build on that initial topic and you still don't have that good understanding, you would have to actually at some point ask for clarification, and you might actually look worse than if you just asked the question in the beginning. The other thing is that oftentimes asking questions, especially if you're new to a work environment and things have been done a certain way for a very long time, it can cause other people to ask questions indirectly. And so really, it's a great thing to ultimately be doing so. And to build on this point, I would also say, don't be afraid to push back on either topics you don't understand or maybe don't agree with. It's definitely easy, especially early on in your career, to fall into the trap of, my manager, they have the right answer because they get paid more than I do and they've done this before. Or even if you're new to a company, like, I'm the new guy, I definitely don't understand enough, I can't really contribute to the conversation. Ultimately, I think those are both just excuses. And again, like I said, it's easy to fall into the trap, but the consequences of that are not that great. And even if you do agree on something, it can be worthwhile to play sort of devil's advocate, both because it helps you to internalize whatever your understanding is and look at things through different perspectives. So that helps to build your internal confidence. But secondly, it kind of shows to other people that you're putting in the time and the energy to really look at things in multiple ways. The next few points that I want to talk about come from this book called Principles by Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is both an investor and an author, and he heads a firm by the name of Bridgewater Associates. Dalio is known for his unconventional management styles that he's really implemented in Bridgewater Associates. It's gotten a lot of press over the years. There have been even academics that have gone in and sort of studied the culture of Bridgewater. And so his book, which is very popular amongst the sort of the business world, is it's full of a lot of really good advice for both career and also sort of management, a little bit of also economics as well. And like I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about some points, and I'll quote a few things from the book that help to inspire me and my thinking for the next couple of points here. So something that Dalio talks about in his book in multiple ways, and something that I've sort of, I think, discovered on my own in my short career, is trust your intuition, trust your gut. By trusting your intuition, I mean really try to internalize something and look at it critically. And if you can try and identify any holes in an argument or maybe a project plan or whatever it might be, that is a very effective way to really test if your intuition is kind of working, and also to evolve it over time. To that end, I would suggest using your intuition as a guide, and just be aware that mistakes are natural, they're normal, and your intuition could lead you astray. But ultimately, based on the feedback that you get, sort of if you make a mistake, there's consequences, you learn from that. That helps to evolve your intuition. And that's why they say, in work, or even if you're applying to business school or whatever, like, experience really matters because you've had this time to develop your intuition. So early on in your career, it may take some time to cultivate that, but just know that over time and by putting in the work, you do have a feedback mechanism to get better. A point that Dalio makes in his book is that mistakes are not necessarily bad. It's our own judgment that we apply to mistakes that makes them look bad. There's a great quote in Dalio's book that illustrates this point. When I began to look at reality through the perspective of figuring out how it really works, instead of thinking things should be different, I realized that most everything that at first seemed bad to me, like rainy days, weaknesses, and even death, was because I held preconceived notions of what I personally wanted. With time, I learned that my initial reaction was because I hadn't put whatever I was reacting to in the context of the fact that reality is built to optimize for the whole rather than for me. It's only normal to feel initially that mistakes are really bad. You feel pain, right? You feel like you did something wrong, but the reality is that mistakes oftentimes are reversible and they're not as bad as you think, and you bounce back from them pretty fast. The key here though, and Dalio again sort of talks about this in his book multiple times, is it's really important to learn from mistakes, to reflect on them and critically think about, if this were to happen to me again, what would I do next and what would I do differently? My last recommendation is to recognize that perfection itself is not a goal. So perfection, whether it's trying to really impress your boss on something, to make sure that there's no mistakes in a product launch, like whatever the case is, perfection isn't a goal, but perfection is sort of the road that you should be keeping an eye on. In other words, it's the pursuit of perfection that you should really care about. There's another good quote from the book to sum that up, and it goes like this. Acknowledging your weaknesses is not the same as surrendering to them. It's the first step toward overcoming them. The pains you are feeling are growing pains that will test your character and reward you as you push through them. The reality is nothing is perfect and nothing will be perfect. And it's more important to acknowledge your weaknesses and move on with it. And to that end, it's all about trying to root cause an issue. So here's another quote. More than anything else, what differentiates people who live up to their potential from those who don't is their willingness to look at themselves and others objectively and understand the root causes standing in their way. Well, guys, this was a short and sweet one. I hope you found this video helpful in some way. And if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you could go ahead and hit that like button for the algorithm. And if you'd also like to check out more of our content, please do so. Consider subscribing to the channel for more content just like this. We talk a lot about money topics. This is a slightly different video where I was getting a little bit into some career advice, obviously still applicable to money. But if you have any questions as well to that end, go ahead and leave a comment down below and join the discussion. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Thank you.